You may have seen a video that I put out a while ago where I assembled this Edison recorder kit from Gacken. This one recorded onto wax sticks, and the idea was that it etched a recording into the sticks, then it would play it back later. However, I didn't get an awful lot of success with it. Now, I'd seen at the time that they had produced a more updated version since, which looked like it was going to work better, called the new Edison style cup phonograph kit, but I was unable to find one of those to put together. However, after that video went out, one of the viewers sent me a link to the product that was being advertised on Amazon in the US, and it's no wonder I was unable to find it when I searched, because the title is in Japanese. Anyway, I've ordered one of these, I've got it sent to me here in the UK, and I'm going to put it together in this video. Hopefully it'll work a little bit better than the previous one. Looking at the box, it appears that this model is completely different to the previous one. Obviously it does a pretty similar thing, but it doesn't seem to share any of the same components. Looking at this lady's expression on the right here, this one definitely seems like it's going to work. She's got that knowing look that says, yeah, can definitely hear something coming out of here. Oh yeah, this is working pretty good. So hopefully I'll have a pretty similar look on my face by the time I've put this thing together. Now, part of the fun with these is putting them together. The end result is something that you might use for a few minutes, then put away. But the assembly is where most of the fun comes from, at least for me anyway. And I'm happy to see they included a good number of cups inside the box. As you can see, they're just plastic cups, nothing too unusual, although there's no ridges on the outside of these. So if you're going to get some more later, you're going to have to find some that have got a smooth exterior like these ones. Now, the instruction booklet that comes with this, of course, is in Japanese. It's nicely laid out, and on the previous one I was able to follow it just by using the pictures. However, you can download an English version of the instructions for this, which I've done here. I've also printed them out. It's just easier for me while I'm working on the thing to have one page in front of me at a time, and they are very clear and very easy to follow. When it comes to assembly, pretty much everything you need is inside the box. They even include a small Phillips head screwdriver. You just need to supply 2 AA batteries, some adhesive tape, and a pair of scissors. And that tape is only used at the beginning on this first section here, where we get the funnel shape, hold it together, and then just put some tape on the inside to keep it in place. So the next few parts that I'm putting together now are the sections that attach to that horn. So we've got a little piece of plastic here which first has to clip onto this section here, so it creates a bit of a sort of hinge. And then you get the horn, put it onto the plastic component there. It holds itself in little notches. You've got to make sure you have the horn the right way around so that the seam is on the bottom. It doesn't look unsightly that way. You put the other side on, and then you just clip this part in between those two components there. And then we have to put a little spring in there so it holds it shut, as you can see. This little component here goes on the end section. That's where the sound goes through. It lets the horn move around a little bit. And then you screw the whole thing together with the screws that are provided. And then a second spring is placed between these two plastic levers here to create this little mechanism. Now, held inside this piece of protective foam is perhaps the most important component inside the box. This is the section which creates the vibrations which go up the horn and create sound, or alternately the sound that comes down the horn vibrates onto this, and that little section there then creates a vibration on the needle which etches it into the plastic cup. Now that section has to be attached to this little part here, which you just join both of those sides together, and then that goes onto the horn section there. And then finally at the bottom, the little component goes on there and attaches into that little peg at the bottom, holding it in place. Okay, we're motoring on now. In fact, we're going on to the motor box. So we're putting aside all the parts we've put together so far. We're starting afresh. So we've got the electric motor here, and each side of that is covered with a little rubber cap. That's to prevent vibrations working their way through the entire mechanism. So the motor goes into that section there. The other rubber cap goes on the other end of that. The wires are routed around the edge of the motor down through the hole in the bottom, and then there's a plastic cover that goes over the top of there, and of course 4 screws are put into that just to hold it in place. Right, so we need to put all these wheels and things on here. So starting with this one here, that goes in the middle, and that's supposed to be held in place with a screw on the other side, but trying to get that screw inside that part of the component was just a little bit too tricky for my large fingers, so I ended up breaking out the magnetic screwdriver. So even though they do include a screwdriver in this kit, I think you might need to have some magnetic ones standing by just to make things a little bit easier on yourself. Right, so we're going to put together the rest of the mechanism. Notice here it says, "Here is a nick." which is just a nice little indicator as to the amount of detail that these instructions go into. So of course you put these parts together in the correct order, you put the plastic washer on there, put that through there, but I don't know if you can see the little nick on the top of there, but that nick or flat edge lines up with the flat section that's inside the centre of this wheel that I'm pushing on the other side, and then I put a screw through that just to hold both components together. And once I've done that, I'll just give it a quick spin to check that everything is moving freely, which it is, so I can put that to one side. Move on to the other side of the components which go on the base that hold the cup. This is the other end. Now, some of it's already assembled, but there's these plastic legs which you have to put into the base of it, which pop out of the side, and then you put a spring between those. And the idea is this is a mechanism for holding the device on the base, but when you push those buttons together, the legs in the bottom move, which enable it to move up and down freely. Right, moving back to the first section, I'm going to put that onto the base now. Now the wires have to be fed through a hole in the bottom of this, and then the whole component just clicks in place with plastic legs either side on the top there. Now I'm going to wire this up to the battery compartment, so first off we just twist the wire around and then twist it around the end of this component here, which slides into the pre-formed battery compartment in the base. And then on the other side, of course, we're going to have a spring, so we just tighten that to that spring there, which slides into the hole that's been provided on the other side. And of course, tidy the wires up, put them in the little wire guides on the side, and that's the battery compartment done. So the other component that we put together on the top, we can now put on there, and as you can see, it holds itself in place, but we have to tighten it up on the bottom so that it doesn't fall off. But when we push those buttons, we can move it up and down depending on the size of the cup we're going to put on this device. The next step is just to add on the on-off switch, which is a plastic lever which goes through to the underneath and just moves the battery out of the way when you want to turn the power on and off. A nice simple system there. We're putting the bars in now, which are what the whole mechanism uses to drive the needle up and down, as well as that horn section. So we've got the horn section now. Notice it clips back and holds it in place there, and we can just slide that over the bars like so, and then we can put the other end of this component on, put the other end of those bars into there, and then that clicks into the base like that. So it's looking pretty much finished now. All I have to do is put these belts on. There are 3 different sizes. The small one goes from the motor to the middle wheel, the next one goes from that wheel to the wheel on the right, and then the third one goes from the wheel on the right to the wheel on the left. So it's time to find out whether I've put this thing together right. So I'm putting 2 brand new AA batteries in the bottom. I'm going to flip that power switch, and as we can see, it's all operating properly. The right hand side would revolve the cup, the left hand side moves the stylus up and down, which has the horn attached to it. The only thing we've got to do now is just to do a couple of finishing touches. There's some double-sided tape you have to snip into 4 pieces. That attaches to this plastic end to the cone section, which then slides into the part of the cone that we made earlier on, and you just hold those sections together. And then there's a sticker to put on the base, onto which is written Edison style cup phonograph kit. Now there's just one more thing to add on, which we wouldn't get very far if we didn't, and it's the stylus or the needle. Now there are 3 things included inside the box. The first is a hollow metal tube into which you could insert your own sewing needle. And then there are 2 identical needles that you can use as a stylus that are just metal sticks with a sharpened end. Those slide into the end of the device here and are held in place by a spring. So we're all ready to go now. All I have to do is put a cup on the device so it slides onto the base here. You hold it in place with the clamp at the other side, lift up the cone and the stylus at the same time, move it back to the beginning of the cup, put 3 little weights on the top here which hold down that stylus or needle. Now when you play it back you only use 1 weight, but when you record you use 3. So I switched it on, but unfortunately the cup wasn't rotating. The stylus was holding it static in position while the mechanism was spinning around it. It was sliding on the holder. So I read in the instructions that you might want to use a foam insert into the cups. That might hold them to the base a little bit better, and sure enough it did. So I've put the cup back on with a foam insert in it, and I'm going to do some recording tests now. Now I've got to warn you that these involve a little bit of shouting, so don't be surprised. Hopefully some of this is coming through. I can see a notch being etched onto the plastic cup there, so it looks like it is doing some kind of recording. And of course, as the cup goes narrower towards the bottom, each rotation has less surface area, so as you can see it's sort of speeding up a little bit as it gets towards this end. So anyway, let's have a listen to this. Right, so after you've made your recording, you take 2 weights off the top, leaving one in position, move the stylus back to the start of the cup and then start the motor again, which is a much simpler system than the one on the previous kit I put together where you had to change the stylus each time. Anyway, let's have a listen. Not exactly the results I was hoping for. There's nothing on there as far as I could hear. Now you can adjust the angle of the stylus, so I adjusted it slightly to a more sharp angle and then tried again. Okay, this is attempt number 2. As you can see, I'm shouting quite loudly into the funnel here in order to get some audio to vibrate onto that needle and then for it to etch it into the cup. So surely that recorded something. Let's have a listen. Right, I'm attempting to record again. I think this is the 4th cup that I've tried now. I've done a few adjustments. I've put some rubber pads on the base on the inside here just to grip the cup a little bit tighter. You'll see it doesn't seem to be moving around quite as much, although it's jumping a little bit now. And overall it seems to be moving a bit quicker, which I hope is going to help with the sound recording. I'm actually getting a little bit hoarse now as well, so hopefully this has worked this time. Let's have a listen. So as you can hear, I was having no luck with this device. Now the stylus is definitely etching a line into the cup. It just appears that there isn't an awful lot of sound in there. However, I persevered. Over a 2-day period, in fact, I tried every possible angle of that stylus. I've tried different styluses, different amounts of weights. I worked my way through all the cups and even went and bought some more cups from a shop. And this is as good as I ever got it to sound. You have to talk very loud and use long sounds. So I started this kit assembly with such high hopes. I presumed that the previous kit I put together with those wax sticks, there was something just a little bit off with it. Perhaps the wax was too hot or too cold, or the angle of the stylus was a little bit wrong. There were so many things that could go wrong with it. I wasn't surprised it didn't work perfectly, but this one was a completely redesigned kit. It doesn't share any components with the previous model, so I presumed that this one was just going to work straight out of the box without any problem at all once it had been put together. But it turns out for me this one worked even worse than the previous one. I just don't know what I've done wrong. I've tried my best. Now if you think that you'll be able to assemble one of these and get better results than I have, which wouldn't be difficult, I've got a link to the product on Amazon in the video description text box. However, if you've already put this kit together and you've got good results with it, then please share some of your hints and tips in the comment section. And then one day I too might be sitting here listening to a cup with this smug expression on my face. But that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.
Well, that was pointless. Why would you make a video about something that doesn't work?
Well, perhaps they didn't know it wasn't going to work. Not everything turns out as planned. Take you as an example.
Well, if he'd watched this video first, he'd know that it didn't work out before he started.
Sometimes you just have to enjoy the journey, rather than concentrating on the destination.
How do you mean?
Like the film 2001: A Space Odyssey.
The ending of that didn't make any sense. All that business with the old bloke in the white room, and then that baby in a ball.
Granted, it's a bit unconventional, but didn't you enjoy the film as a whole?
No, it needed a proper ending, with lots of explosions and giant robots fighting each other.
Well, what about The Great Escape then? That's a brilliant film, despite the fact it doesn't work out perfectly at the end.
No, I'd rather watch nothing than watch another video with an unsatisfying ending.
Right, hold on. There you go. Now you can watch nothing.
I'm bored.
Welcome to my world.
Have you got any films we could watch that have good endings?
Well, have you ever seen The Italian Job with Michael Caine?
No, I haven't even watched it on my own.
Oh, well then, you're in for a treat.